Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our SalesFuel and BIA Advisory Services 2021 Digital Event Series for March. Our topic today is our research on road trips. And as we were just discussing the panel before opening the room, let's get this show on the road. Horrible pun, I know. Welcome to all of you. I am Audrey Strong, your host today from SalesFuel. Our panel, next slide, consists of Tom Buno, the CEO and founder of BIA Advisory Services. Our Celine Smith, the president and CEO of SalesFuel. Celine Mathieson, she's the vice president of Insights and Analytics for BIA Advisory Services. And we've also got SalesFuel's vice president of training, Mr. Dave Blakesley, and his capable hands running our slides today. Thank you, Dave, for that as well. So today's discussion will be on the ad forecast for 2021, the market trends for the second half of the year, projections for that time period, digital strategies, and then we're going to head down to the subverticals of hotels, motels, museums, other amusement venues and gambling and lotteries, and other motor vehicles. And as a little reminder for you, just to think ahead, next month's series topic will be on OTT. So quickly, some quick housekeeping to be mindful of. If you have logged in and you are having technical issues, we have someone ready to help you. Shoot an email immediately over to webinars@bia.com for help. For questions, type your questions in as you have them. We will take questions after each subvertical. Questions not answered today, we will answer post-webinar to you. So go ahead and put them in regardless. Also, for attending, you're all going to receive the local digital resource full of data and insights into the verticals for the entire series. I'd like you to watch your inbox tomorrow. That is when we will be sending everyone the links to the recording, the slide deck, and that handout. Also, please do us a favor. We'll have a short survey at the end of this webinar. We'd like your feedback on how we did, and if you found it valuable, we would love to hear from you. So please fill it out. And without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to BIA CEO Tom Buno. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Audrey. I thought we'd actually start by looking at airline. I know that this is a road trip, but it's interesting to really think about what happened in 2020 and how it affected all of us. And we took a look at air traffic in particular. And it's really interesting that for the year, air traffic was off about 62%. But when you look month by month, we see what actually happened when this pandemic started in mid-March. And then we had April and May that was down over 90% in terms of a decline in airline traffic in 2020 compared to 2019. Now, the rest of the year was all in that 60 to 70% range of decline. So for the year, it was 62%, but it really hit really hard kind of in the start of the summer months last year. Now, if we look at this year, we're still down about 60% in January and February, but those were both positive months before the pandemic hit in 2020. So things are starting to move in the right direction. For the first half of March, it was only down about 38%. And I actually read an article this morning that said that airline traffic on Sunday was the highest level it's been since before the pandemic. So we're starting to see us getting out of this situation. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about travel in terms of driving, which obviously is directly relevant for road trips. So you see a very similar pattern here, not to the same magnitude of what we saw in airline traffic, because people have to drive. Airlines, for a lot of us, are for vacations and not mandatory travel. So what you see is the same kind of trend, significant hit in March for the second half of the month, and then significant declines in April and May, and then slower the rest of the month. So overall, we had traffic on roads down by about 13% for the year. But again, we're starting to see that we're coming out of that situation. So let's, and I love this visual that we have here with the toilet paper. Let's go to the next slide, please. And what you see is that now that we have vaccines, we think road trips make sense for 2021. That's really part of the reason we chose this as a topic for today. And what you see is that there's about 80 million Americans that have got at least one dose. As we were talking before the call, most of us on this call actually have already had 2 doses. And the US population will have about 50% of the US population will have at least one of the vaccine shots, 1 dose by June. So we're looking at herd immunity happening by the summer. And in this visual, you see a high 5 because now we can do road trips. So it's going to be a year of rebound. So let's go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about our road trips. We were discussing this. Our family is actually going to go to Surfside Beach, which is just south of Myrtle Beach, in early May. It's the first time we've been together as a family since my youngest daughter got married on March 14th last year, just before everything hit. So we're going to get together in the first week of May and spend some time at Myrtle Beach. Your road trip, Lee, give us an idea of what your plans are.
My road trip is not going to be the beach, which it normally is. My road trip is going to be at a resort called Nemacolin. And if anyone watches The Bachelor, you've probably seen it. But it's like, nonetheless, it's like I don't think it did its justice. Great resort. It's about a 4-hour drive from Columbus, Ohio, about 70 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, out in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. Fantastic restaurants, golf courses that they shouldn't allow me to play on, but somehow they do. The most incredible spa that I've been in a few spas around the world, where there's excellent there. So my wife and I will be going there in May for our 30th wedding anniversary. So miracles can happen. Never thought that was possible. But that's where I'm headed in May, and I can't wait. So Celine, what's going to be your trip down in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm actually, my daughter's down at Texas A&M Galveston. She's as they call them, a Sea Aggie, not just an Aggie, but a Sea Aggie. And what you guys are looking at right here is our VRBO that we will be on the beach. My mother got her shots and I have mine. And so we're going to go down and visit her. My mom has not seen her since last year. So she's really excited. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being down there and checking in on her.
And then for mine, she's going to the water and my husband and I want to head to the desert. So just being in a car on the open road is something we've been kind of jonesing for. So it's a little bit of a longer drive, but he really wants to go to Vegas. So with that being said, we want to know all of you on this webinar. What is your preference? Let's take a poll. Where do you want to go? Let's pull up the question. Everyone answer, say within the next 30 seconds or go. We've got the beach, mountains, resorts, tourist attractions, or to visit family. So while you're answering, and go ahead and click, I wanted to remind you also that you can actually, going forward for this series, you can pre-register for the series 3 webinars at a time. And we've had several people that have done that, gone ahead and bundled them together on the registration page. So if you like the series and you want to just opt into all of them, next time you go to the reg page, you'll see that there, and it's very simple. And I encourage you to do that because, we're going to be doing these all year. So we'll wait just a few more seconds here. Dave, how's it looking?
76% said beach. 9%, now 10% for the mountains, 10% for resort, 13% to visit family, and 3% to tourist attractions.
Nobody likes tourist attractions.
And the beach is now at 56%. It's by far the most.
The beach is great. Nobody wants to visit an 80-foot high cement dinosaur somewhere, I guess. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Tom. Thanks for voting, everyone.
Thanks. Next slide, please. So we're actually going to start talking about some of the numbers now. So road trips is part of the leisure vertical for us. And it's interesting to look at this vertical. We estimate that this year it'll be about $10.2 billion of local advertising. But what's fascinating is how this has changed over the last 3 years. So in 2019, we estimated advertising in the vertical was about $13.2 billion. Last year, it just got devastated. Without the travel, without anybody going to leisure venues, some of them closed, many of them closed, it declined down to $8.7 billion, and we see it bouncing back to $10.2 billion. So that's a 34% decline in 2020 and a 16.5% rebound in 2021. So we won't be back up to the 2019 levels, but we are seeing a significant bounce back, much of which will happen in the second half of this year. In terms of the largest media for advertising, mobile 22%, online at about 17%, and the other two, out of home and direct mail, also over double digits. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of what we look at BI when we define the leisure and recreation vertical. We have 11 different categories or sub-verticals that we track. Hotels-Motels is the largest at 30%, and we'll be going into some detail right after this, my part of the presentation, to look at hotels and motels. And then it's kind of interesting to look at where the bounce back is happening. As I said, it's still 16.5% across the board. The ones on the left, tourism, motion picture, airport, amusement parks, and performing arts are all higher, closer to 20% or more. So that's a quick overview of what makes up this vertical. And then the next slide, please. So this is a digital series that we're focused on, looking at digital advertising throughout this year. Each month we've got a different topic. This is one of the areas where digital has really bounced back nicely and has continued to grow, reaching about 50% of the total vertical this year. And what you see is that $5.1 billion is split primarily with other display and search, as well as the other ones that we've listed, including classified verticals. So you get a sense of what's happening in terms of digital for this vertical. And it clearly is an area that's growing more rapidly in this vertical than some of the other verticals that we track. And with that, next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Celine, and we're going to go into hotels and motels.
Thanks, Tom. So Tom talked about our leisure category, and within our leisure category, we have a lot of sub-verticals that make up that and make up that ad spend that he just showed you. And so I'm going to go through and talk about a bunch of them and hand it over to Lee for some selling advice and insights. And after each one, we'll have the ability for questions. So go ahead, as I'm going through the slides, if you have any questions, pop them in and Audrey will capture them and we'll try to address them before we move on to the next one. So next slide. So hotel motels, 2021, $3 billion in ad spend. Mobile is going to be getting the largest share. Mobile increased this actually 25% from 20 to 21. So for 21, it went up a little bit, but it's, about a quarter. And again, what you see on the right are the other, out of our 15 media, the other 4 media that make up the most share of spend by hotels and motels. And just to mention what's not on here, OTT and radio online, while they're not a large percentage of share, they actually are showing growth from 20 to 21 by about 20%. Okay, and just to mention too, Advantage people, our clients that are on Advantage, you can go in and log in and look at this for your local market. So you can run a local alert report in Advantage. Next slide. What does it look like from a digital perspective for digital traditional split? Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, there we go. So for hotel motels, no surprise, digital is a little over 50%. So we're seeing, that split go more to digital. And what is pushing that? A lot of money spent on search and a lot of money spent on other display, which is really display ads. And search and display through 2025, through our forecast, are going to continue to grab that, a large amount of share. Mobile, as we know from the other slide, mobile is a big part of that. When you're out looking for locations or looking for hotels, motels, you're probably on your phone or looking on your phone for that too. So that's why we see digital at a larger percentage. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lee.
Thanks, Celine. And so here's a look at the 2021 market trends that AdMall subscribers can get in from the local account intelligence reports, either for hotels or motels or a variety of other vacation-related topics. The hotel industry, it went from 66% occupancy, that's what's normal in 2019, down to 44% last year. And for this year, they're projecting 52%. As a matter of fact, they're already starting off the year right around that. That is still below break even though for many hotels. So this is not going to be a banner year for the industry, but it is obviously improving. Now, the first post-pandemic trips, well, they're most likely to reconnect families, sort of like things like family reunions, weddings. I've got a niece, for example, that's graduating college, so we'll actually have a graduation. And a lot of those things were put on hold last year. So you can expect those things to actually start happening Q2 of this year, very soon. 61% of consumers say they want to travel after they get vaccinated. There's some pent-up demand there. And of those people, 83% say they want to take 2 domestic trips this year. 44% say they will take 2 international trips this year, although I will caution, though, that's like the international trips are going to be a lot more challenging than the domestic ones because other places in the world are at a different place, in their vaccination efforts. And so that has to be taken into consideration. But that is what the consumers say that they want. And 41% of those people who are traveling domestically will spend more than $2,500 per trip. Now, I'm going to mention business travelers, even though this is not about business travel. This is interesting. Half of business travelers will stay in hotels for leisure trips once they're vaccinated. And 62% of frequent business travelers say they will take more leisure trips this year than they did last year. Only 5% say they will take more business trips. And so that's another topic for another time. But that's where the online meetings and things like that will be eating into that business travel for a long time to come. But back to the road trips. Next slide. So here's something about those domestic vacationers that are 27% more likely to think more favorably of a business that responds to negative reviews than the average US adult. So, the reputation management is key. It's something then that you can be selling. But what's really important though is negative reviews are going to happen. Not everyone's going to be happy. There will be odd things that happens. It's really how the business reacts to it then that speaks volumes. And so 27% of vacationers, will actually think very positively of a quick and speedy response. Next slide, let's talk about some selling tips now. So one of the questions that you can ask in your discovery is, what is your TRevPAR? Actually, that is TRevPAR. So that is the total revenue per room. And that is not just the cost of the room, but it's also what the amount of money that gets spent in the bar, poolside, at the spa, parking, anything like that. So that's when you can really tell that, if you can fill up some rooms and increase the occupancy, then what the actual impact of the advertising is going to be. And that's how you justify the proposal that you're offering to them. They need to update their messaging still on a regular basis based on state mandated policies on the social media, on the websites. Another thing to consider perhaps is fully refundable rentals, particularly when we get into the vacation rentals. There's 4.2 times more bookings and higher revenue if they're able to do that. You can't do fully refundable, partially refundable, those types of things. Anything to reduce the risk, because even though we're all excited about the road trips we want to take, the virus is a little tricky, and things can change. And some for the better, or maybe not for the better. So we're still not 100% confident that we want to take a trip. We've booked the trip, but are we going to take the trip? So another thing that we've learned is that you want to feature the destination prominently in SEO keywords. So if you're if you're going to where Tom's going, Myrtle Beach needs to be in the title of the web page, in the SEO keywords. And again, 78% of travelers will check online reviews before booking a hotel. So reputation management is something that you can really sell a lot of. Let's go to the next topic now.
So we got questions about that vertical. So Christine asked, does print get any love in that sub vertical?
It does. Again, on our slides that we have, we show just the top 5 by share, but there is print in there, yes, and traditional TV and radio. They're just right below that. So when you look at all of our media, it's not that there isn't any spend there. We just, on the slides that we do, we just put the top 5 on the highest share. So
Perfect. And then somebody, Lee, would like you to explain TRevPAR again. I believe RevPAR is revenue per available room. That's what that
That's right.
stands for. But
So
right, but go ahead and break.
TRevPAR is total revenue per available room. And again, that is not just the cost of the room. That is also the amount of money then that is created by the occupancy of that room at the bar, at the restaurant, at the spa, parking, you name it. So any other places in the hotel where money can be spent because that room is filled, that goes to your TRevPAR. And that's really, I think, a better number to use than when you're trying to justify a large ad spend.
Perfect. Let's move on.
All right, so this wasn't highly voted in our poll, but museums, historical sites, and other venues. So that's one of our other subverticals in here. Next slide. So this one's a little different, 490 million in 2021. Mobile, again, is going to get a large part, but look up there, TV, 16.8%. Why is that? Well, you know, a lot of museums and other venues and special historical sites, they do partnerships sponsored by, and a lot of times that is with traditional media. Could be a local newspaper, could be the radio station, could be the local TV station, or you know, if let's say Bridgerton's on, I'll give Bridgerton as an example. Bridgerton's on, you know, if there's a historical site, they might do something in partnership with that on a content perspective. So that's what we're seeing TV on there with the third largest share. Online, out of home, and direct mail. And similar to Hotels-Motels, while OTT and radio online are not on here, they're showing 25% growth from 20 to 21 in ad spend. Next slide. And then here you look to, again, traditional, because of the TV spend, we're going to see traditional taking 50%, over 50% of share versus digital. That is going to stay that way and get closer to 50%. Traditional digital by 2025, so something to look out for. Other display, which is display ads and search, will continue to dominate through 2025. And with that, I'll turn it to Lee.
So let's take a look at the market trends for this particular subcategory. Some consumers want the security of traveling in their own vehicles, so they're going to take vacations closer to home. So they're a little nervous then about mass travel, mass transit. So visiting natural attractions out there, you can escape the crowds. You're out in the open, so you can feel a bit safer doing that. As a matter of fact, state national parks are expected to attract 18.5% of all U.S. adults in 2021. Something to keep in mind: theme park operators who couldn't celebrate their planned debut of new rides and new attractions last year, well, that not only do they have new rides and attractions for 2021, but they have the ones for 2020 that they couldn't advertise and celebrate. So they have even more of a reason to advertise now. Another thing to think about is museums. They're supplementing revenue by promoting their spaces for private events such as wedding receptions. So someone mentioned print media. So if you're a print publication and you're doing a bridal section, or you're doing a bridal publication, where museums actually might be a good prospect for you, because there's money to be made there. Another thing too, speaking of print, it's like the travel publication, of course, but again, we're talking about digital today, so I want to get back on that. So let's take a look at the next slide. And that 40.1% of amusement park patrons have responded to ads on a social network in the past 30 days. So get that Facebook advertising out there, Pinterest, whatever the case may be. People that like to go to amusement parks, though, that's what they're going to respond to. Next slide. Let's talk about some selling tips now. One of the questions to be asking of tourist attraction is, what is your expected maximum allowable capacity? So this is usually set by the state government, and they'll set a number, like a percentage or something like that. Those that are outdoors, there might be some more leniency, but not necessarily. So it doesn't matter whether you're a zoo or a theme park or a national park or anything like that. You need to check out and kind of see, okay, what's the maximum that you're allowed to take in right now? And also, now is the time to be selling recruitment advertising to these businesses to help them staff up for the peak summer months. You may have already seen some advertising for these types of businesses already. Now is the time that they should be advertising that. And because there are tourist attractions, highly visual social media platforms like like Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube should be used. And lastly, I wanted to add, build relationships with the tourism bureaus and the visitors bureaus, because not only could they become an advertiser, but they could also direct you to others who are members then that could use your help. So Audrey, what kind of questions do we have?
So it's funny you mentioned social media, because there was a question specifically about Facebook advertising falling into this social, the social media with the subverticals. Do you want to address anything more specific to Facebook for the question?
Yeah, I from our research and everything like that, it's not just limited to Facebook. Certainly, Facebook is the king daddy when it comes to social media. But there's so many outlets that you can use now, whether it be YouTube, even TikTok, you can use now. So it's not just limited to that. But clearly, though, when we're talking about touristy attractions and we're talking about state and national parks and everything like that, Facebook's definitely got to be number one with a bullet.
Next question is
COVID.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to make on that. With COVID, a lot of, and let's remember, for this category, that also includes museums. So I don't know if I was able to tour the Louvre virtually. And so there's a lot of being able to provide that visual. That's something that, and a lot of the events, even with the COVID lockdown, some of the, national parks and some of the museums are only open limited. They do, need to promote that and promote that they have, that you have to reserve ahead of time. So that's another area to look at when you're talking to them.
And the zoos are doing the same thing, where you have to have an appointment and a pre-prescribed time with your ticket, and you have to show up at the time of your reservation, almost like you're going to a fine restaurant.
And we did have a question pertaining to that, which is there's also a larger opportunity for the day trip rather than the destination trip happening right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like for us, Audrey, like in Texas, the Bluebonnets are out in Texas. And so the Bluebonnet festivals are still going on because they're outside with limited. But we're seeing, last year they didn't advertise them. This year we're seeing advertising across media. Social media, again, the visual for Instagram showing the Bluebonnet fields from last year. But, Facebook, we're seeing stuff on Facebook too. For us, from the forecast, just to redirect to the digital, I did not talk about Facebook in that mix of other display, search, video, and that, because it's not actually just what's on Facebook, it's what's on digital. So if you think about that, it's going to be targeted ads. So it'll be part of the display or search on our forecast.
Great. One last question for you guys. What is the best way to build a campaign for the visitor and tourism bureaus who use hot tax ad dollars? Hot tax ad dollars. That might be something we need to research into.
Perhaps, Celine, you have any thoughts on that?
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, we'll answer that offline for sure.
That's right.
Okay.
I have a friend that works at the Convention Visitors Bureau, so I'm trying to. We did, studies with them. Actually, she worked for the Fort Worth Convention Visitors Bureau, but I don't think
it's Audie Renee's question. Thank you, Audie, saying hotel occupancy tax. That's what the.
Okay.
So, but we'll, definitely answer that offline. Let's move on. Let's keep things rolling. Keep the show on the road.
All right. Money, money, money. Speaking of Vegas, baby, we're going to talk about gambling and lotteries next. This is a big category for some of our clients on here for sure. Next slide. So I know down here Oklahoma's open, the gambling's Choctaw Casino, and it's just again for gambling and lotteries, it's also it's a destination. Like, talk about the day trip. You can go up and gamble for a couple hours, or go to the pool, or go eat. So there's a lot of other things that go into the casinos for sure that people have different reasons for going there. 910 million. In 2021. Mobile, again, is getting the largest share, but as you can see up there, we have TV and some other traditional media, out of home and direct mail in the top 5, along with online. And again, mobile is growing from 20 to 21 by 28%. TV, broadcast TV, that 18.4% is a growth from 20 of 15% of shares. So starting to come back and spend some more money on traditional channels. Next slide. And we can see that too in the mix. Traditional gets majority, and that includes radio, TV, newspaper, out of door, direct mail. Traditional is going to get more share of the ad spend for gambling and lotteries. And when we look at that digital split, it's going to be search and display. However, going in, as we look forward to 22 and 2025, video display, which is video pre, mid, post video anywhere digitally, is going to show growth and is going to actually take over regular display share and be the second largest portion of digital ad spend. Lee?
Definitely seeing a lot of that more in my feed, in my stream. So let's go to the next slide here, and we'll talk about some market trends. Casino revenue, not surprisingly, dropped 30% in 2020. Some casinos, though, will experience recovery to nearly full traffic by the end of 2021. Amazing. However, this does not include destinations that rely on business travel and/or conventions. That's going to have to wait a little bit. So 2022, maybe 23 on that. Another thing to consider is that half of Americans will soon be living in states that either offer or allow sports gambling or soon will offer sports gambling. So you're seeing a lot of casinos now spend some money on their sports books, and that's a big deal. Poker rooms are now beginning to reopen at many locations. So this is something that's happening there, but also there's a lot of competition now from online gambling sites, and that's certainly picked up during the pandemic, and that's something that's not going to be going away anytime soon. Next slide. So speaking about casino guests, they're 44% more likely than all US adults to respond to a daily deal, those still exist, or a digital coupon. So they love the promotional offers, and if you can provide those to them digitally, they're going to respond to them. Next slide. How do we sell? Well, one of the questions to ask is, what is your expected maximum allowable capacity? And when do you expect that to increase? So it might be one thing for the month of April, but when do you expect that number to actually go up? Is like, what are you hearing from state officials, for example? This is one of those areas where you want to focus your search engine marketing on the in-state visitors or those within a short drive, and using the state name also prominently in the SEO. So when I say in-state visitors, so if you're in Texas, then you're promoting in Texas, but also if you're on a border like Oklahoma, Louisiana, certainly include those states as well. Again, highly visual social media platforms for promoting winners, restaurants, special events. You have to really recreate the excitement of all the lights and everything like that, and the winning and the thrill of it all and everything like that. So that's where the highly visual ad platforms and social media then will come into play on digital, but also on your display ads as well. Recommend promotional offers in compliance with state laws using digital coupons. So that's another thing that you can do to sell to casinos in 2021. Audrey?
So one question was, are casinos taking the opportunity to advertise local amenities, particularly those that are reopening, like, hey, our pool is reopening, or our golf course? What are you hearing about that?
That's not something I've seen yet here in Ohio, although I have seen, though, the restaurants reopening. With those that have really nice restaurants, I have seen those being advertised. I have seen certainly the poker rooms. I mentioned that. Another thing that I want to mention is that pre-pandemic, then a lot of people started having outdoor gaming, and that was designed primarily then so that those could still smoke while gambling. But now it takes on another purpose in the fact that you're outside in the open air, thought to be a little bit safer. I've seen that advertised as well. How about in your neck of the woods, Celine?
Yeah, I mean, since I'm in Dallas, we get a lot of the advertising for the Oklahoma and Louisiana casinos, and they are, yes, they're, again, because it's a short drive, they did a lot of staycation advertising. Or quick, to come up. They've been advertising their restaurants. Now they're not up to full capacity for special events yet, so that's something that will be coming back. But they definitely, were pushing their golf courses, their restaurants, their spas as part of their promotions.
Two more quick questions, guys. This is a good question. Well, they're all good questions, but this is interesting as well to dovetail what you guys were just talking about. What should we say to casinos who aren't advertising because they don't have any special events right now? What's the angle for that one beyond the poker rooms and the restaurants?
Well, I think that advertising, again, is always about the future. So it's like, just because you don't have anything going on right now, let's think about the future. What do you got coming up? What are you thinking about doing? If you're not thinking about doing something, why not? There's plenty of other places where your entertainment dollars can be spent, not necessarily at a casino. So how are you going to compete and vie for that? And that's as more people then are looking for those day trips and those road trips and like that, they have lots of options, some not even related to gambling. And that's really the competition. So what are you going to do to create that excitement and that interest and desire then for people to show up?
And then the last question is, you referenced the TV spend. You mentioned broadcast TV. Do these numbers also include audience targeted cable TV advertising, please?
Cable is separate, and I don't have a cable number right now, but whoever asked that question, I will email it to you when we get off.
Perfect. Let's move on to our next sub-vertical.
Other motor vehicle dealers. So what is that? That is motorcycles, RVs, anything that is not a pickup or a car or a van. And so that's part of our automotive category, but for this special webinar, we've kind of pulled that out and put this in our road trip category. So it's not, when you Advantage subscribers, when you go in, you have to go into automotive to find the other motor vehicle dealers. For road trips, this is, I think, one of the most important categories, just because how are you going to get there? You're going to get there in some sort of vehicle, and it might actually be an RV, right? Or you might be pulling your boat. It just all depends. Or your off OTV, what is it? The OTV, what is, anyways, the off-road vehicles and stuff. ATV, thank you. I'm thinking OTT. I've got like media on my brain. Anyway, so
advertise your ATV on OTT. That's next month. That's next month.
I know. Oh my God. 800 million in spend for 2021. And again, online's getting a big part of it. If you think about automotive category as a whole, we know that, online visual is very important. TV's right up there with 21.8% share. That's, number 2. You see radio up there too. There you go. Print newspaper. Print newspaper is also very important for this category, along with mobile. Mobile on this and online are the only 2 that are really going to be aggressively growing from 20 to 21 in their share, but it's only about 10%. Next slide. And then when we see this, we have a 50-50 split with digital and traditional, because again, just like your traditional auto dealer cars, you're going to see that. You're going to see traditional is usually a little bigger, but we, for automobile, we see that moving closer to a split of 50-50 in the next couple of years. For other motor vehicles, it's here already. And then when we look at that digital, what makes up that digital display, video display, and search, they kind of keep the same amount of share over the next couple of years, so they get the majority of it. But if you look up there too, classified verticals, that would be like eBay. That would be, camping, I don't know, camping sites, where people are renting or renting or selling other motor vehicles on there too. So, when you look at this, I'm sure Lee will talk about this, from the digital perspective, make sure that they're using all these categories and all these channels when they're doing their digital advertising. And I'll let Lee take it away with some more insights.
Yeah, the key there definitely is always go where the audience is and what they're already using in digital. And so it's not important that you're everywhere in digital. You just have to go where your likely potential best customers are going to be. So speaking of which, RV shipments are expected to reach over 500,000 units in 2021. That represents a nearly 20% jump over 2020, and this will be a record for the industry. Now, this is despite the fact that they had to shut down production for 2 months during the lockdowns in 2020. Not a problem. There's still plenty enough inventory out there then to be able to set this record in 2021. So they've got inventory to move. Now, in 2020, it's important to note that 35% of RV buyers were under the age of 35. So get rid of that notion that only old folks who are retired use RVs, because that's not the case. And also, speaking of the younger drivers, well, the demand for pop-up campers surged 30% last year, and that's particularly popular among the younger drivers who are new to RVing. They're easily towable models. You can hook it up to the back of your crossover or your SUV and just go to town with it. And also the other thing that's great about that is that you're in control of your own hotel room. If you're a little nervous about that, well, then it's like, well, you can pretty much take it with you wherever you go and not have to worry about who's been in the room before you, because it was you. Motorcycle and scooter sales grew 11.4% last year as consumers are seeking more of that individual mobility. Again, it's like less mass transit, more personal control over their transportation. This is expected to continue in 2021, especially in urban markets where people are using motorcycles and scooters now to go to and from work as we start to open up the office places again. So those are two things in particular that we're going to see in 2021. Let's talk about the digital audience. Next slide. An interesting stat for you is that 47% of RV and motorhome shoppers, these are people then who have indicated that in the next 12 months, starting from last summer, that they intend to purchase either an RV or a motorhome in the next 12 months. So 47% of them have responded to an ad in a smartphone app or a text message in the past 30 days. So a couple different things for you to be thinking about as far as where to put advertising, and also that SMS text messaging is going to be very effective with this audience. Next slide. So when we're selling then to these types of dealers, the dealers of RVs, campers, motorcycle dealers, again, you can find them in the local account intelligence reports in AdMall if you're an AdMall subscriber. Couple of discovery questions you want to be asking is what kind of financing offers are available? These are not cheap products, and so people want to pay for them over time. So it's like there's always a deal going on there, and the deal that needs to be promoted. What kind of inventory is available? But of course, you need to ask that question. But because the inventory is going to be there, in most cases, the next question to ask is what generates the highest profit for you, and maybe that's what needs to be advertised. This is a category, though, it doesn't matter whether you're advertising personal watercraft, ATVs, motorcycles, RVs. Take advantage of the co-op advertising and market development funds, and that can help expand that budget. Remind them to piggyback off of several limited time manufacturer promotions that are going on right now, and you'll find those in the media sales opportunities section of AdMall. Fully vetted, limited time media sales promotions that need to be advertised. They include not only promotions, but also financing offers, new product introductions as well. And also, if you're managing, you're doing website services, well, it's important then that the websites have to have current photography. It's very easy then to overlook something and you've got a model that's 2 years out of date. Attention to detail, but also now be optimized for mobile, because this is a group of people then that is obviously very mobile. And so you want to make sure that the website then is super optimized for mobile. It's not only good for the SEO, but it's also good for having an impact with the potential customer. Audrey?
Okay, so we've got 3 of you that sent in the same question. So
Wow.
this is a trend. I'm going to read one from Mariana because she's got some data with hers. It says, RV dealers and boat dealers in my area, the South Carolina coast, are telling me they cannot keep up with the demand. They're sold out 2021 models, taking orders now 2022, no inventory, which will not ship until June. How do you break through that? And then a couple other people said that in their area, there is low or no RV inventory.
So I think that would just simply be because sales are so hot right now, right? So other things you want to consider there is like, okay, these vehicles need to be accessorized. These vehicles need to be serviced and maintained. So you also have those types of things to promote and advertise. Just as an auto dealer then makes a lot of money from the service department, the RV dealer can also do the same kinds of things. So it's like if we can't make the money then selling the new vehicles, you also have used vehicles, by the way, to fall back on. And so take a look at that, number one. Number two, though, is promote the parts, service, and accessories.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on. Thank you.
Yay. So we have, as we've done in the past, we have a download that on leisure and recreation for you guys. When we send out the deck, you can click on the link, but this is the link for the resource to download it. It's, you know, a great resource to look at the subverticals. And as you can see on the right, this is what it kind of looks, what it looks like on the front, but it will go specifically into the verticals that we talked about. I think we did other motor vehicles, and we did just an overall travel and leisure handout for you guys for attending.
And also what's
Next
great
slide.
about that, Celine, is like, you know, if you are BIA Advantage subscriber, whatever, we'll give you specifically all the categories you need to click on to actually get, you know, to do a deep dive and getting the information on that. Likewise, AdMall subscribers, the local account intelligence reports, the audience scan reports for understanding the buyer intent, as well as consumer spending numbers broken down by the zip code is also part of this handout.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah, and then so Advantage, again, if you're not an Advantage subscriber, you've seen some of our data today, and as you can see, there's a screenshot of the pie chart like what Tom showed and what I showed that gets you into the intelligence in your local market so that you can examine your opportunity for the leisure vertical and where you can make some money. And again, for those people on there again, that didn't see their media that they're selling on there, their core media, you know, it is in our pie charts, and you can go in and look and see what that's looking like and how your media is growing or staying stable in this year.
Next slide, Dave. So the series continues. We hope you'll come along for the ride for the entire rest of the year. We wanted to let you know that, again, these are the dates. April is OTT, May 25th, lawyers and accountants, which, by the way, audience from a prior webinar voted that as their top topic they wanted us to do. And then for June 22nd, we're going to do real estate. So next slide, Dave. Thank you. So if you like the research that you saw from the SalesFuel side of the equation on this, you can get it 24/7 with AdMall. If you're not already a customer of ours, we'd sure like to meet you. Go to admall.com for more information and to get a demo. And next slide, Dave, when you're on our salesfuel.com website, check out the Sales Manager Training Program. We just put this out this year. It's a great solution to upskill your sales managers. And if you're about to hire, Dave, next slide, don't hire a toxic troublemaker, hire a rainmaker. Lee, you made this slide. I think it's hilarious, but I think we've all seen these type of coworkers in one time or another.
Yeah, and that's it. And the most important thing is that you really need to heighten your BS detector, because salespeople, it's like, yeah, we're good with the gift of gab, we're good at spinning numbers and everything like that. So it's like what you really need to do is to not go by gut instinct, but also then have some real hard data based on science, so that you'll have some reassurance in that the person you think you're seeing is the person you're actually seeing. Or if it's not, you know, it gives you a little early little warning detection then, so for you to get more curious and ask more questions and try to figure out, you know, are they really a high potential? Are they a sales imposter, or are they a toxic troublemaker that you want to avoid at all costs?
Yeah, BSometer. I just made up that word.
Okay, we got
salesfuel.com.
Someone go get that domain real quick.
Yeah, /hire. We can do a demo for you and show you around on that as well. So we're going to wrap things up and get you guys out of here a little bit ahead of time, which I think is a good thing. We want to thank you for attending. Please fill out the post-webinar survey. We'd like to know if you like the material, if you have any constructive criticism. If you have questions or comments, you can send them to Celine or to me. And thank you for attending. This was a great webinar. We had a good time presenting it and hope you enjoyed it as well. And have a great afternoon, everybody.
We'll see you on the road.
Thanks very much.